Welcome to the Turn One Studio podcast. I'm Elliot Custodio, and here we sit with professionals we know and admire, learn more about their businesses and a bit about them personally. Today we're with Omar Almanzar, a personal injury attorney. Welcome.
Thank you, Elliot. Appreciate it.
So I'm saying personal injury attorney, and I feel there's way more to what you do than just that. But can we start there?
Sure.
What is personal injury law?
So personal injury is actually a pretty vague umbrella term. There's
Okay.
a lot of things that could fall into personal injury, but what I do most, especially here on Long Island, is car accidents. Car accidents make up probably 75% of the personal injury work I do, but there's also things like if you're walking down the street and there's a defect in the sidewalk, you slip and hurt yourself, so we call those slip and falls or trip and falls. In a parking lot, in someone's home or in a business, those are premises liability cases.
Okay.
Then there's also if you get hurt while you're working on the job, that's a workers' compensation case. That's another type of personal injury. And then there's things like even a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional hurts you in the course of their job. That's a medical malpractice case. But what my office does more than anything is car accidents, just because that's so common here
Right.
on Long Island.
That's fantastic. And so we have a lot to unpack here.
Sure.
So when it comes to, we'll start with car accidents. If, God forbid, we find ourselves in a car accident, what should we be looking for when we ask ourselves, do we need someone like you or not?
Good question. So, first of all, if anyone finds themselves in a car accident, there's always a few things you should do right off the bat. And it always surprises me when someone comes to my office and they say, "Oh, I didn't think of doing that," because to me at this point it seems almost so obvious that you should be doing these things. But this is what everyone should be doing this in case you're in an accident. Number one, make sure you're physically okay before you get out of your car. And if you're not, call 911 for medical attention right away. Number two, once you make sure that you and everyone in your car are physically okay, check to make sure the other person or people in the other vehicles are okay also. But only do so if your car and if getting out of your car is safe to do. If you just got into an accident on the side of the LIE, don't get out of your car yet. Wait until the police come, set up cones, barricades, whatever. Number three, exchange information with the other person. ID, so your driver's licenses, insurance, and car registration.
Okay.
Take pictures of the other person's plate if they refuse or don't want to give you their ID or insurance information. Lots of times people at the side of the road be like, "Hey, it's not a big deal, it's a fender bender. Let me slide you $500, we'll call it a day." Don't do that.
Okay.
We were just talking before about you're a little bit of a car guy, right?
Uh-huh.
So you know that a dent on the outside of a bumper or a fender is not necessarily $500 worth of damage to a car. There's other things that could be going on.
Oh, yes.
Especially with modern cars today, the sensors, the cameras, all that
There's
stuff.
a lot behind those bumpers.
And if there's any structural damage under the bumper, the bumper is meant to absorb impact, but if there's anything wrong with the car underneath, you're looking at thousands of dollars worth of mechanical and body work. And if you don't have the information for the other driver and they drive off because you took $500, good luck trying to get that money back later.
Right.
So make sure you and everyone in your car is safe. Call for medical attention right away if needed. Don't get out of your car if it's an unsafe place to get out of your car, but once you do, exchange information with the other side. If they're not willing to exchange information with you, just get pictures of their license plate.
Okay.
That's all you need to really have an attorney or an investigator look them up. Once you do that, call your insurance company right away. If the police were involved, your insurance company is going to find out.
Sure.
I get told all the time by my clients or people that call me to ask questions, "Hey man, I don't want my rates to go up. I don't want my insurance to know about this.
Right.
I don't want my insurance to eat. I don't want to put in a claim." To which I say, that's great, but New York state law and the DMV will find out the second police get involved because the report they generate goes right to the DMV, and the DMV will go right to your insurance carrier.
Right.
So they're going to know. And if they're going to know, might as well get the benefits of the claim.
Right. That's what you have insurance for.
You pay every month or every 6 months,
Yeah.
use it, right?
Yeah.
Now, are your rates going to go up? They could, especially if you cause the accident.
Sure.
And lastly, if you don't get taken away by an ambulance or seen at the scene of the incident, get yourself checked out within a few days. You can go to a walk-in, urgent care, City MD, any of those places.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Thankfully, I haven't been in an accident in quite a while. But when I had been, I don't remember where this advice came from specifically, but I had been advised to go to the hospital
Mhm.
immediately after the accident, basically in I don't want to say in fear, but to thwart any issues of you feeling discomfort or discovering an issue a week down the road
Right.
that could not be attributed to the accident because you didn't take the time to go to the hospital. Is that true? Is that something? If we decide not to go to the hospital day of the accident, do we lose the ability to attribute a a medical issue with that event?
You run the risk.
You run
do.
the risk. Okay.
Now, I'm going to give you some nuance here because I think the advice that you got was correct for 20 years ago.
And that's pretty much the time frame. Okay.
Yeah. So now, especially here in Long Island, there has been a lot more of an increase of these walk-in urgent care centers. Emergency rooms are truly meant for emergencies. They triage and prioritize the people that need immediate help
Sure.
because their life is in danger. And if you're not one of those people, they will patch you up, give you an ice pack or a prescription for a high dosage of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like aspirin
Advil.
or aspirin or Advil, right? And they send you on your way with a referral to go see your primary care doctor. So unless you have broken bones, bleeding, internal hemorrhaging, something like that, the ER is going to charge you a lot of money and not do much for you.
Okay.
An ambulance ride by itself costs about $900.
Is that right?
Just walking in the doors of an emergency room, another $1,200. So before you even get any medical treatment, you're already looking at a $2,000 bill coming to your house. And if you don't have insurance for that, that's going to go to collections.
Okay.
So this is also where setting up the claim is important because your auto insurance will pay those bills, but you have to ask them to do that.
Okay.
Now, the problem, therefore, with the ER is you walk in, they don't really give you much care if it's not an urgent, life-altering situation, and then it's on you to go make your appointment with your primary care doctor afterwards. Whereas you go to an urgent care, their priorities are a little bit different. They're not just trying to get you back out on the street. They will actually assess you, give you an evaluation, and they may refer you to one of their own doctors in-house for physical therapy, for some sort of treatment, for an x-ray, for an MRI, things of that nature. So I find these urgent walk-in cares to be a little bit more aligned with what's important in terms of the types of injuries people see. It's called soft tissue, where it's not obvious and apparent right after the accident. You're not bleeding in a coma and your head's busted open, right? But you're in pain, and you may not feel it right away because you're full of adrenaline, but you definitely feel it the day after or 2 days later. Those urgent walk-in cares can really treat you a lot better. And from the legal perspective, what it also does is it lines up your date of loss or the date of your accident. It lines it up with when you're now starting to actually say, hey, my body hurts. In court, it's not about what actually happened. In this weird world of juries and judges and trials
what you can prove?
Insurance claims, it's what you can prove. Right? No face, no case. That's the saying. So if you don't have the documentation, right? And I say it a little cheeky, but if you don't have the documentation, no one cares if you're in a lot of pain.
So an urgent care is as official as going to the emergency room in this scenario.
Yeah. And in my opinion,
certainly more convenient.
And they do a better. The way they document it's a little bit more thorough for not just getting you back out on the street, but actually treating you. So yes, absolutely.
Very cool. Dog bites.
Oh yes, we do a lot of dog bite cases too. And I say this as an animal lover. We were talking about my dog earlier. But dog bites are a serious thing. A lot of people have dogs. Everyone loves their pet, right? But dogs are animals. And they come, while they're domesticated, they have wild instincts still. One of those instincts can be to nip, to herd, to bite, to protect, to guard. And if you have a dog that has already bitten someone before, now there's no excuse. Under New York State law,
one strike.
You get, the one bite rule.
Okay.
If you have a dog that has previously bitten someone, now anything that happens, the owner is 100% on the hook, no defenses. But even if it's the first time your dog bites someone, if your dog has displayed aggressive behavior, been muzzled, been aggressive and lunged at people in the past, you can still find yourself on the hook for any pain and suffering that it causes when it hurts somebody else. So be very careful. Dogs also have to be licensed, have to have their vaccinations up to date. Dog training is great because that helps control the impulses of these dogs. And you can even get insurance to help cover.
I was going to ask what, as a pet owner, you can do to shield you from some of this liability, if anything.
So if you own a home and you have homeowner's insurance, make sure you tell your agent or your broker that you have a dog,
Okay.
what type, what breed, what size, what age, and they will include a line in there saying, if your dog hurts someone, they will pay up to 10,000, 20,000, 25, 30,000, and they'll even give you a lawyer to defend you.
Okay.
Right? So you can protect, and that way it protects all your other assets.
Okay, that's
If you have
great
renters,
advice.
yeah, if you have renters insurance, you can do the same. So if you're renting an apartment or a condo, you can do the same thing. Get renters insurance. Tell your broker that you have a pet. So those are probably the best ways to protect yourself.
Fantastic. Do you do traffic tickets?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a threshold with what's minor enough, I don't need you, versus what's not so minor and I absolutely need you? Like, what should I be asking myself in that moment to reach out to you or not?
So this is where Google is going to be your best friend.
Really?
When you get those traffic tickets, look at it to see the code, right? The
Okay.
section of the vehicle and traffic law that the cop is saying that you violated. If the section of the vehicle and traffic law has points, those points can affect your driver's license
Yep.
and your insurance
Yep.
premiums. So that's where you absolutely want to get a lawyer involved, because lawyers generally, at least I can speak for myself, when I go to traffic court, I usually have a chance to talk to a prosecutor, a local village attorney, or the judge, and we try to work out some sort of plea bargain.
Okay.
It usually is, if I have this many points, are you willing to pay a little bit higher of a fine, and the points will go down to
the
zero.
points will continue to follow you.
Correct. So for most people, paying a little bit more to get rid of the points will, in the end, save you money, because the higher points and the higher premiums will follow you forever.
Right. How long do those points stay on your license in New York?
18 months.
18 months.
They stay on. Think of it as two lists. You have your active point list, and then you have your lifetime point list. So the points after 18 months automatically roll off.
Okay.
But your insurance carrier will see it on your driving record. It stays there forever.
Oh,
But
a bit of a permanent record,
yeah.
like school. Okay.
So they say permanent. I think the most you can go back is 25 years.
Okay. Oh, that's a lifetime, though.
That is
Wow.
for many people, that's a lifetime. Your most insurance carriers, I know Allstate and State Farm, they go back about 3 years. Some
Okay.
go back as far as 5. And usually after that, they don't care anymore. So if you had any points in the last 5 years, take a defensive driving course.
Okay.
I always recommend, if you're going to take a defensive driving course, take the longest one possible. You can take one that's 2 hours or 3 hours, up to, I think, even 8 hours is the
Right.
longest. Take the longest.
Okay.
It sucks that you have to sit there for 8 hours trying to take a course
Sure.
and break it up over a few days. But you can only take one every so often
Right.
to help with your point reduction, so might as well take the longest one possible.
Maybe this is a silly question, but if I don't have points on my license, can I bank that for future points?
Mm-mm.
No.
No banking, no rollovers.
Okay.
No.
So,
You have-
and I'm
yeah.
assuming the advantage of not waiting till you have points to take defensive driving is that you're paying more for your insurance.
Less.
If you don't take it.
Oh, if you don't, yes, correct. I'm
You know,
sorry.
if you defer
So-
the class for it. Okay.
Right. So your insurance should give you a benefit for regularly taking defensive driving courses, even if you don't have any points on your license.
Okay. Forever ago. This was so long ago that it was sometime, but shortly after the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh.
The very first ticket I received on the northern state, I was driving to college, and I don't know how fast I was going, but I got pulled over and I got a ticket. The police officer had, I'm pretty sure, like under gender, he hit female, and I'm like, oh well,
Loophole, technicality.
is that a loophole?
Yeah.
And you know, I went to court. I didn't just pay it. I went to court,
Right,
and
right.
I mentioned that to the judge, and they kind of smiled, like, you know, we appreciate the effort, kid, but
Right.
they specifically said, no, this isn't like the OJ trial. It's, you know, I don't know why I'm sharing that story. I'm assuming that the judge was correct and that a technicality like that, an inaccuracy on the ticket in that way, is not really a loophole, right?
So for the most part, it's not a loophole. There are, and this is where you have to know your jurisdiction, your judge, the process, right? So there's what the law says, but then there's also how all these individual courts locally actually do things.
Okay.
If this were a ticket in New York City, what they call the Traffic Violations Bureau, and all the boroughs in New York City operate the same way, you might be able to use it if you get the right ALJ, administrative law judge. You might be able to get the right ALJ to dismiss the ticket for you.
Really?
If you can bring out that technicality.
Okay.
They do that there because the volume of cases in New York City is so crushing
Right.
that most of these
Switch it
ALJs, if
along.
they can find a reason to dismiss a case, they
Yeah.
will.
Wow.
But take the flip side of that. In all the other counties in the suburbs, right? A lot of the way they raise revenue and funds for the county and for the local police, for that local courthouse, is through the fine money.
Right.
They're charging you for the infraction that the cop, who's also getting some of that revenue, not directly. It's not
Sure.
like a quid pro quo, but that money funnels through New York State or the county, and then eventually ends up as
Yeah.
their salary. So the incentives are different there. They don't want to just let you go. They are going to find ways to find you guilty,
Right.
but they're going to look for ways to give you a break, less points or whatever,
Yeah.
and chop up that fine a little bit. The issue with any mistakes, wrong address, wrong date of birth, wrong color of the car, is that what they can do is they can supersede the accusatory instrument. That's the legal way of saying mulligan, do-over, right?
Gotcha.
They can just have the cop come in and redo the ticket.
Okay.
So once you say, hey, there's a mistake on this ticket, the judge is going to say, okay, so what should it have been? Oh, mail? Okay. Officer Jones, please come here. Please refill this ticket
wow.
as mail. Here you go, sir. Elliot, thank you. Now, please, your arraignment, since you're already here. So, and I've had that happen before, where I've won cases on technicalities, to which the prosecutor just turns right around the very next day, fixes everything on paper, and says, please come back to court. Your charges are being refiled against you. So it all depends. That's why the judge just said, no, in your case.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us know, but that's okay. Because they can refile charges, but for the most part, as long as you don't end up with points, that's what you want. That's really the number one thing.
Interesting. So why this area of law? What made you choose this route?
I didn't want to do this area of law initially.
Really?
So when I was in college, I knew I wanted to go to law school. That was the first step. I didn't know what I wanted to do for years, but I knew I wanted to go to law school. So then I got an internship with the Business and Legal Affairs Department at Viacom MTV.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to Times Square every day for a summer, and I was working with all the attorneys. They're in-house attorneys over there. Loved the job.
Okay.
I loved it so much that they picked me up as a freelancer. So I was no longer like just an intern. I was actually a 1099 freelancer, and I was helping out their photographers, the photography department, their graphic design department with contracts with outside vendors. So at the time, the big TV show was Hogan Knows Best. I don't know if you remember Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Hulk Hogan, but I don't know if I remember that show.
He had
this
a
was
reality
an MTV show?
Yeah. VH1. I think it was VH1.
Okay.
He had a reality show following his family along.
Okay.
And the star of the show was not Hulk Hogan. It was Brooke Hogan.
His daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of ringing a bell.
So there's a whole generation of, they're probably now women. It was girls like preteen girls that watched the show religiously for Brooke, and Hulk Hogan was just in the background doing Hulk Hogan-y stuff. Right. And actually, I didn't meet him. I ran into him leaving work one day. I'm coming out. He's coming in for a press release or photography shoot, and we pass each other in the revolving door. He's huge.
Okay.
So one thing I learned, though, while having that job is that the amount of law I practiced was this much, and the amount of industry for that business is this much.
Okay.
So once you're in-house counsel somewhere, you don't really practice law anymore. You have to know the business first.
Okay.
And the amount of law you practice is very thin. So my boss at the time told me, hey, get a job working for a judge. So that's what I did. I applied and I got a job working for the judge in the Southern District of Manhattan for a federal judge. And this was one of the greatest experiences I had, but also terrifying because I realized how much I hated that type of work. I didn't want to just be at a desk like an academic, reading and writing and doing research papers. So one day the judge comes up to me and says, Omar, there's a trial happening down the hallway with a different judge. I want you to go just sit and observe. I said, okay. And she said, here's my press pass or my ID pass. Tell them when you get to the front of the doors with the court officers, tell them that you're there from me. And I said, sure, okay. I didn't understand why. I get there. There's cameras everywhere. The crowd is out the door, down the hallway, and I have my little pass, and I go to the front. The court officer sees me with the pass, lets me in, puts me in the front row. It's the criminal trial for John Gotti Jr. Now, if you know who John Gotti Jr. is, he's the son of John Gotti, who was a big mob boss here in New York for many, many years. John Gotti Jr. was on trial for trying to murder a witness against him for a different trial. So these are all called RICO, organized crime cases, right? And I got to watch the person who was almost murdered. He was kidnapped, a bag put over his head,
oh my gosh,
thrown in a van. This happened somewhere in Chinatown. They punched him, knifed him, crossed the bridge over into Jersey, dumped his body on the shore, drove back to Manhattan, leaving him there for dead. He lived, and he came to testify because he was supposed to be a witness on a different case.
Right.
And then we got the phone records through a Verizon, AT&T, blah, blah, blah expert. And then I got to watch the closing statements of the prosecutor and the closing statements of the defense attorney. And before the trial finished, my semester finished there. So I had to leave, and I didn't get to watch the end of the trial. I saw in the news later, hung jury. I was convinced he did it.
Okay.
Absolutely convinced. But the jury of 12 was conflicted.
Right.
So once I saw that, I knew that's what I want to do. I want to be a trial attorney.
Okay.
So
now I want to be a trial attorney. That sounds awesome.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
So I applied, and I got an internship with the Brooklyn DA's office.
Okay.
I was there for a whole semester. And then I applied to every district attorney's office I could to be a prosecutor. Because from everything I learned, that's where you get immediate trial experience.
Okay.
So I got a job right away with the Suffolk County DA's office, and for 5 years I was a trial attorney for them. I got a bunch of trials. I went to court every single day, and I got a bunch of experience. And then I left there after 5 years thinking, oh, I want to make more money, because they don't really pay you very well as a government attorney.
It's a government job. Yeah.
There's other benefits, but the money you make is not great. So I went to this white shoe firm in Manhattan that did insurance defense. It's as boring as it sounds.
Okay.
But the pay was great. I made almost 3 times as much, paid off all my loans. I was there for barely a year. I didn't survive in that environment. I went from a place where I had complete autonomy. I could run my cases from start to finish. I could make a phone call, get a detective on the phone, get investigations done, get evidence, and then run to court and do what I thought was right with my cases. 2, if I want to send an email to a client, I have to run it by 3 partners and get approval, and they would change my semicolon to a colon.
Okay.
So like that workplace environment, I struggled in it.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided, let me open my own private practice where I can do things the way I want and also do the type of cases I want to do. And that's where I ended up where I am today. Once I had my own private practice, I was able to do anything and everything. I was no longer under a certain person's roof, so I could do any kind of cases I want. So to this day, I do a mix of criminal defense work, but by and large, the vast majority of what we do is personal injury, no-fault car accidents cases.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. That's a great journey.
It was not what I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not what I expected at all when I started out. But I'm super happy where I am now.
Good for you. I think it speaks volumes to your character. You would hear that piece of advice, this would be a great way to advance your career, get a job with so-and-so here, there, and you actually followed through. It worked out.
It did.
You learned from that, and you were able to be the entrepreneur that you are.
Yeah, so internships and work experience by far shaped my desires and my path way more than the academics, right? Being in the classroom, you only learn so much, but once you're actually out there doing it and really experience it firsthand. So if there's one thing I could say to anyone that's thinking about being a lawyer, thinking about law school, work in that environment first.
Yeah.
Really see if it's for you. It's not for everyone. There's a lot of stuff about the law that's very difficult, not necessarily complex. Like, what I do is not complex, but it is sometimes contradictory. You have one judge that says one thing and another judge that says another thing, and they're supposed to be both applying the law the same way in the same place. It doesn't always work out. So I always recommend to people that ask me, should I go to law school? Should I do this? Get a job in that area, as close to the job that you think you want. Get a job in that area first.
Right.
And if you like it, go for it.
Yeah, there's no substitution for experience. That's for sure. So in your role now, you are both a practitioner of your craft, but also a business owner.
Correct.
So putting on your business owner hat, what pieces of advice would you give other entrepreneurs that you've learned over the years? Obviously, someone who's starting out in their career going the internship route is a terrific piece of advice.
Right.
But someone who's already a business owner looking to balance doing their craft versus running their business. Well, I don't want to lead the witness on this one. Well, what do you think about that? What do you have to share?
So the doing of the craft and the running of the business very often are 2 different jobs.
Yes.
And I have a friend who owns a small private gym in West Babylon. And it's kind of like a boutique, almost like personal trainer / gym. And he got it up and running just before COVID. And then when COVID happened, things got a little dicey for him, but he found his way. And when we get together to talk, I'm a lawyer that runs a law office. He's a personal trainer that runs a gym. We have the same issues.
Right. business is business.
Down to from staffing, payroll, rent, equipment, office supplies. We talk the same language when we're talking about our business, and our industries couldn't be any more different.
Sure.
I'm very white collar in an office. He's very hands-on with his clients and very physical. So what I would recommend to anyone that's looking to be an entrepreneur, understand and give yourself some grace that doing your craft and running a business are not the same thing, different skill sets.
Yes.
Do what you can. The same way you practice your craft to up your skills, to learn how to do it, do the same thing on the business end. Take courses, seek out mentors. Oh my goodness, mentorship for me has been key.
Okay.
I have found over the years a handful of attorneys who also have small practices similar to mine, but have been doing it for 30 years. And I can call them up at a moment and be like, hey man, I'm struggling with this. How did you handle it? Because I know they've done it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So seeking out mentors is huge. And never, never, never feel too proud or too stuck in your own ways to change things up.
Okay.
Use of software has completely revolutionized my business. When I say my business, I mean the industry as a whole.
Yep.
And even my office. When I started 10, 12 years ago, everything was on paper. And the people I learned from also did everything on paper. The staff I had, they were all accustomed to doing everything on paper. We're a completely virtual office now. We scan everything. Our software is all cloud-based, so I'm not stuck to any one device or computer in any one place.
Fantastic.
We can, if we had to move our office tomorrow, or if we had to shut down, God forbid, because of another pandemic tomorrow, everyone can go home with an app on their phone or just a good computer with good internet access, and our business does not get interrupted for a second because we have all our communication tools online.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be afraid of change. Change is part of running a business, right? You have to be able to adapt. So those would be the three big things I would say. Put your effort into upping your skills as a business owner, right? Seek out mentors and have flexibility.
And I love giving yourself grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's huge. Sometimes
we're
too hard on ourselves.
I know I've made plenty of mistakes on the business side, and it's helped me learn. Right?
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to make those mistakes.
But it's an opportunity to learn. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's wonderful. What do you like to do for fun?
Oh my goodness, so many things. So we were talking about this, I have a big, speaking of dog bites, I have a big goofy 75-pound Labradoodle at home.
75 pounds, okay.
Yeah, whether we go for walks, go to the dog park, hit the trail, go running, whatever that is, just spending time with him is great. My girlfriend is a dance teacher.
Okay.
And sometimes she likes to throw these big salsa dance parties.
Oh, wow.
So she teaches all Latin dance, right? And so that's now a hobby of mine also.
Okay.
So things like that. I like to try, because my job is so inside, I like to try to get outside as much as possible.
That's
from my
fantastic.
hobbies.
Well, this was awesome. And I thank you for coming by. I learned a lot
Thank you for having
about, way more about you than I realized.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.